Internet family. This is Anjanette Potter, also known as Adam's Rib, and you are looking at the kickoff to. I decided to change the name. I was going to go with 365 Days of Black History, but instead I decided to go with 11 months of Black History simply because we're starting today. And in order for me to do 365, I would have had to start January 1st. So, I am not just going to talk about historical figures. Usually, I tend to talk about Black feminism because many of us have been told, especially by some of our self-serving men, that feminism is not a place for Black women. That is a white woman's thing, which is not true. There are many Black women who basically have fought in both fights. And if you paid attention to either of my Black History Month celebrations, where I did 28 and 29 days of Black feminism, I talked about many of those figureheads. And as I said during those times, because of intersectionality, you will find, well, I thought these were women with the civil rights movement, but if you look into their stories, many of them fought on both fronts. Many of them not only fought for equal rights for Black people and freedom for Black people, because Harriet Tubman was about freedom. They also fought for equal rights for women. People like Sojourner Truth, who was known for fighting on both fronts. So, and you have people, well, there was racism in the suffrage movement. There was, but there were still Black women who represented during that time period. And one of the reasons why I like emphasizing Black feminism is because many of you, like myself, not only not only feel pulled to um, fight the good fight of faith when it comes to causes related to Black people, but you also feel a need to stick up for women's rights as well. I know I do. I'm very sensitive to women's issues. And I can remember being at a church where it seemed like none of the women seemed to care about the other women at all. And I, remember holding hands and talking with one of the women at my church that was going through something and praying with her. And I could remember my pastor kind of saying, are there any, I constantly was doing women's ministry. And I remember a friend of mine saying, "Girl, you were doing women's ministry before you were even saved, before you even started going to church." So I've always, I was always the one. I can remember when I was in high school, I was the one that people would come to if they needed condoms or anything like that. So it was always somebody coming to me for advice or coming to me when they had issues going on and everything. And so, that carried on even through me going into studying ministry. I've always been sensitive about women's issues like domestic violence, equality on the job, equality within the church. Um, One of the reasons I have already said, and I'm going to continue to say, that I am not 100% pro life is because I don't believe that many of our male religious figureheads are making decisions with our best interests at heart. Many churches are supporting forced marriage, which is a form of human trafficking. I had to leave a church because, they kept trying to um, do a bunch of sexual stuff to me. I'm going to say this, if someone is trying to get you to earn a spot in their church by having sex with the members or trying to coerce you sexually, that's sexual harassment. Now, you have people who keep talking about, well, the separation of church and state, which means they are sadly misconstruing what that is supposed to mean. The separation of church and state does not protect criminal behavior. And there are more things. Violence against women is a crime. Domestic violence is a crime. If it is a crime, let me say this much, and I will give you this much of a header. If it is a crime, if if it is a crime to do to someone outside of your family that you're not married to, that no one in your family that you have not fathered or given birth to, then it is a crime to do to people that you are legally married to, that you have given birth to, that you have fathered. So, them being your biological children or adopted children or foster children, if it would be a crime to do to someone outside of your four walls, then it would be a crime to do to anybody who is underage and is dependent on you for their welfare. If anybody that is dependent on you for their care, that is considered to be a legal minor, it is too. I don't care what it is. If it would be a crime to do to someone outside of your household, it would be a crime to do to someone who is in your household. If it would be a crime to do to someone who you're not legally married to, it would be a crime to do to someone who you are legally married to. You can't just go and commit a crime against someone. And no, and you can say, well, the Bible, nowhere in the Bible does it say it's okay to beat your wife. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that it's okay to sexually abuse your wife or children. It is not okay. Nowhere in the Bible are paramour rights supported. Oh, those of you who are on the white religious right. Okay? Yeah, you so-called Christian white supremacists, which the Bible also doesn't support. And some of the things that I'm going to one of the first topics I'm going to talk about is Black history. And why I do feel, to be perfectly honest with you, I think last year was probably one of the first years because I went over Black History Month, and so I think a whole lot of people wanted to take away our steam, so they started. Well, what about celebrating these people or these? I don't give a damn. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem celebrating Latins. I don't have a problem celebrating indigenous peoples. I don't have a problem with any of that because really you're just trying to take away Black folks' steam because you resent us even having a month. So as far as I'm concerned, well, we don't have to just take the month. We'll take the whole year. And while we're at it, we can celebrate some of these other groups too, all these other people of color. But for this channel, for Adams Rib Media Ministries, I will be celebrating 11 more months. The rest of the year is dedicated to Black history because I stand with those who believe that Black history should be taught all year long, and I support the teaching of one of the first topics that I'm going to discuss is critical race theory, and I'm going to talk about why I don't have a problem with it being taught. As soon as I get in here and look at it myself, I probably will start podcasting as early as tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Which means, and most of y'all know my podcasts are available on Anchor. They're available on iPhone, Apple Podcasts. If you are a Google subscriber, if you have Android, I'm available on Google Podcasts. I'm available on Spotify for those of you who listen to Spotify and get your podcast information there. I'm also available when I do these lives, they're also available on YouTube. So my lives, when I do them, I'm doing it through Prism because I greatly miss Haps TV. For those of you who did Haps TV, I miss Haps TV, but my lives are available on the Adams Rib Media Ministry channel on Facebook, Twitter, which tonight's won't be on Twitter because there's some issues going on there. Um, Twitch and YouTube. And YouTube. I think there's another one, but I'll find that and have that available for you on Friday. I will be checking my I will be checking my equipment tomorrow to see if my equipment is okay to go ahead and do the first um, Eclectic Music Geek podcast for the year of 2023. Um, I don't know if any of you have heard, if you're Adams Family fan, the original Wednesday Adams has passed away. Miss Loring, I can't. I'm trying to remember the first name. There have been many there have been many people, and I may talk about her this month because now there's a TV show where they've made her Latin, which I don't have a problem. They have a Latin actress playing the latest version of Wednesday Adams. I like Wednesday Adams. I like Wednesday Adams because she's not afraid to be a little left of center or be a little off or whatever. If you are a fan of the Adams family, you know that they were all pretty quirky and really relatively weird anyway. Um, I have never been a person who strived to be like everyone else. So I like being different. I like not being like everyone else. I was always taught to be unique. And because, why be like everybody else? Everybody else is taken. Be yourself. Love yourself the way you are. Love yourself in your own skin. And it is okay to have. I was looking at YouTube, my latest addiction, and they did one of the accounts that I follow did a thing on different actresses that had and their accounts about being pregnant. And of course, most of them, were negative accounts. Now, let me say this. One thing I have stopped doing is listening to women, the childless by choice crowd. I ain't listening to y'all no more because it seems like you want every other woman. Like many people um, seem to have this thing that's been going around lately, where you are not allowed to enjoy. Like you're not supposed to enjoy pregnancy. If they didn't enjoy pregnancy and you enjoyed your pregnancy, then they want you to tell the truth. And I'm like, well, what if they're telling the truth? Many people have not had a difficult pregnancy. And most of the women that they talked about were women who had an extremely difficult pregnancy. Well, you don't view it as a good thing because you had some health issues. You had something go wrong during your pregnancy. Hell, if I went through what you went through during my pregnancy, I wouldn't view pregnancy as positive either. Um, to be perfectly honest with you, the main negative thing that came out of pregnancy for me was labor. If I could have gone without them contractions, and if I could have done like my daughter and popped my baby out at an hour, I was hoping that that would happen. It was not what happened. Okay, both my pregnancies lasted a good 12 hours or more. Both my labors lasted a good 12 hours or more. And I was like, Lord, if I was jealous, that was the one time I was jealous of my daughter. We went in there and she popped him out in almost an hour. Now I don't get jealous. And really wasn't jealous then because I wasn't sure how long this was gonna take. She went in there and she gave to birth to him. We couldn't have been in there very long. before she had him. She was already dilated and everything. It was time for her. By the time we got in there, it was time for her to push. And so I was like, shh, must be nice. I'm like, I had to sit up in this mug for 12 hours or more, both times. I'm like, did nobody give me no break? I'm like, shoot, well, I wanted to be the woman who went in there and was already open and ready to push. Okay. I wanted that mess over with so I could go ahead and have my baby both times. Right? And, most of us are not that fortunate. Many times, what people don't tell you to prepare you for pregnancy is that every pregnancy is different because every woman is different. Most people are giving you the average of what could happen, but all kinds of things could happen. You know what I'm saying? But when it's all over with and you get this nice little bundle of joy, okay, and you get to finally sleep and get all the sleep that you wasn't getting during all them hours that you were laying there doing the hardest work your body will ever do in life, harder than anything. And many of the people were famous actresses and singers. Well, you know how much of a premium entertainment puts on women's physical appearance. And now you got to worry about gaining weight, and then many of them had conditions like eclampsia and different other stuff that caused them to swell a little more than the average pregnant woman swells. And let's face it, when you are in that third trimester, depending on when the third trimester, the worst times to be in the third trimester are in the summertime, especially July and August. Yes, you will be miserable. Yes, you will not want to walk nowhere. You will be tired. Your ankles are swelled. Your feet are getting big. You can hardly fit any of your shoes anymore. I only had one little clumpy, ugly beige pair of shoes in the summertime that I could fit. And then the winter. I took 2 or 3 spills with Zora when I was in my last trimester with her, and I was so afraid that I was going to fall and wind up going into labor early or harming her, whatever. It was just horrible. And I remember, but so many people were kind to me. One lady was like, "Girl, get in this car. I'll take you away." Because I didn't have a car at the time, and so this lady said, "Girl, get in this car. I'll take you to where you need to go, because you don't need to be falling." uh, like I said, black women, we look out for each other. Always give us. There are times when I feel like there are some of us like, did you get the memo? We all black. We in this together. We gotta look out for one another. So, like I said, I'll be talking about a whole lot. So I'm not just going to talk about historical figures. I saw somebody post Martin Luther King's wife. I was excited about that. I'm always excited have an idea and it catches on, and other people want to do that same thing, because I feel so unified. I feel like we're so in this together when this happens. But I not only basically like I did last year for February. I don't just want to talk about historical figures. I also want to talk about issues that are a thing in our community. I decided I'm going to add police brutality to our to one of the issues I want to talk about and want to podcast about. I don't know if that's going to be one of the first ones. It may be the way I'm feeling right now. So, if unless you've been under a rock or don't watch The View at all, you know that Sister Whoopi Goldberg has come under fire for an opinion that she expressed this week on The View. And she basically just said what a lot of black people have thought for years. And you need to watch the clip for yourself. But basically, she was saying, what is it going to take for people to get that this is a problem? I don't think that people thought that, number one, there are so many levels in this latest case with Tyree Nichols. Um, I remember hearing about it because I was listening to DL and they were talking about it. And I was like, usually they do everything they can to hang on to them cops like they're hanging on to a junkyard dog with a bone. And so I'm like, oh, they fired them awfully quick. Oh, they charging them with murder. Well, damn. They must be as tired of all this mess as we are, right? So I was in. So what do you know about being in the car on a car radio? You can't see who they talk about. So when I got in my house and I, clicked on the TV and I'm looking through, because I subscribe to many news outlets as well, a lot of news outlets. I am a news junkie, and so I'm looking and they started showing the pictures of the cops. And so my first, so at being, I have been black for 56 years. I am not a bit naive about this, about the criminal justice system. So I'm looking and I'm like, oh, so no wonder they were quick to do all of this stuff. Now you can act like black people are never happy no matter what you do, but you know why we're looking side eye, because they're all black. I'm like, well, number one, I believe that the book should be thrown at them because I don't care what color you are. If you do to anybody the horrendous things that they did to this young man, you deserve to be thrown under the jail. You murdered this guy. But now we're finding out that there was a white guy there, and he's on administrative leave. Once again, so like I said before, whenever something criminal is going on, and they want to look like they're tough on crime, and they want to look like they're whatever, it's always a case of black people being the example. Let us make an example that we are tough on this thing and that we are not going to take this and that we are not going to blah, blah, blah. So, what do we do? I don't know if it's unconscious or conscious, but if we're going to throw the book at anybody, let us throw the book at a bunch of black folks. Let us make them an example that we do not tolerate police brutality. We are not going to take it. But while we're demonstrating how tough we are on this kind of thing, let us put the white guy who did the tasing on administrative leave. So I already see this is not going in a very good direction. But then when I heard a white guy's response to Whoopi, so Whoopi basically said, what is it going to take for people to take us seriously when we talk about police brutality? Because we don't even have a probable cause why they even pulled him over in the first place. They did decide to dismantle the Scorpion unit, which is basically let's go and beat up on black people and not have to go through proper police protocol or anything else. And there are people who are already coming forward and saying they have problems out of that same unit. Why? Yeah, we're not shocked. Why are you? We're not shocked. I'm not shocked. Okay, we had I talked about Operation Ace here in Columbus, and to me, whenever they talk about being tough on crime, black folks about to have a real y'all gonna have some really really bad Sundays. Okay, it's not gonna be a good day in the neighborhood for us. It usually is not. It usually is not. Okay, then we have this other joker who says, it's all single black women's fault or single black mothers. I'm gonna wait on that one. So Whoopi basically said, what is it going to take for them to start taking this? Do white people have to start getting beat up by the cops before they take police brutality seriously? So this white guy on TikTok, I'm like, now I'm waiting for What I'm waiting for is the conservative, racist, conservative white people to come forward and twist her words and say that she's advocating for white people to be beat up on, and that is not what she said. I stand all the way with, if you are following Whoopi anywhere on social media, show her your love because she didn't say nothing wrong. Those of us who appreciate her words and felt like she couldn't have said it no better, show her your love and support wherever you're following. If you're following on TikTok, if you're following on Instagram, following on Facebook, show her your love because you already know that the religious white have decided to come for her. Okay, so those of us who agree with what those of us that agree, including myself, I already went ahead and commented and said you didn't say nothing wrong. All you did was tell the truth. There have been many times when Whoopi has said things, and I've been like, "Oh, girl, this is one time that was not that time." I agree with her because I remember my grandmother used to say when it came to drugs, they never care about no issue when it's an issue that primarily affects black people. No one seems to care. It doesn't become a thing until it starts to disproportionately start to affect white people. I remember a young lady talked about, the war on drugs. When crack was when the crack epidemic was affecting largely black populations, nobody seemed to care. It wasn't until it started affecting places where there were a whole lot of white people and white teenagers that people started to care. One of my favorite black psychologists, Dr. Gwendolyn Goldsby Grant. I don't know why I always want to call her Gwyneth, but Dr. Gwendolyn Goldsby Grant wrote a book called The Best Kind of Loving. And she talked about how when issues are primarily a quote black problem, nobody seems to care. But by the time it starts to affect white communities, black people already have walking pneumonia. So we're so deep in it till we're like, it's almost become normal to us. When the crack epidemic started to happen, we already had jokes. Okay, we did. We had jokes after a while because so many people's family members and people who they love were being affected by it. Till we one of the ways that we coped was one of the ways that we always cope, and that's with humor. So people began to tell jokes about hiring crackheads to get to crackheads and cheap labor and all that other stuff, and you know who you are. And so we dealt with it the best way we could because was nobody else was doing anything about it. In fact, a comedian, ironically, Dick Gregory, began to have a movement where he talked about taking back our neighborhoods. He said, "You know who the people are who are dealing in your area." And that began to be a bit of a movement right there. He began to talk about taking back our neighborhoods because he's like, nobody's going to do anything about it unless we do something about it. And that may be the thing that we have to do with this whole police brutality thing. Okay? And we've done it before. We have to do it again. Either that, unless you like walking pneumonia, we have to do something. Okay? And it's terrible that it has to be us. I hate that these cops chose to do this. I'm like, man, can you imagine if black cops began to, how can I say it, see themselves as almost like a liaison between the community and law enforcement? Nobody's saying that we don't need law enforcement. We do, but we need law enforcement that sees us as people who are there to be protected and served, not as animals, not calling us not as animals, not as monsters, not as criminal, not judging us as everybody is criminal just because they're black, not seeing us, seeing us as human beings, seeing us as lives that do matter, both male and female out of us. Okay? And it's horrible. So my first podcast may be about police brutality. Because I do plan to do one about I plan to do one about Black Lives Matter. I also plan to do one about Yes All Women. Because when I was doing Yes All Women, there was sisters posting just like Me Too. And I'm going to talk about Me Too as well. I had people in my YouTube stream that were trying to convince me that Me Too was of the devil. I'm like, Me Too is not of the devil. At least I don't have no clear thing from the Holy Ghost saying it's the devil. I will tell you this much: the behavior that's causing people to have a Me Too is definitely demonic. So we want to think about that. Okay, false accusations within the world of sexual assault account for 2 to 10% of only 2 to 10% of allegations of sexual of rape, sexual assault turn out to be false. The same as other crimes. That means the majority of reports are conclusive, are not false. Not only that, let's talk about the 98% of men who are guilty of having done sexual things to people from the cradle to the grave that have never been caught. And some of them go to your church. Hell, some of them are in your pulpit. So I'm going to talk about some figureheads, but I'm also going to talk about some issues that have, some historical issues that have been a problem in our community for a very long time. So I pray that you come on this journey with me, and comment wherever you see my posts. I will be podcasting with Anchor, but I found quite a few neat little gadgets that help me to be able to post those podcasts on YouTube, so that you can listen to it on YouTube if you listen to me there. So I love all of you. Have a good rest of your week. I will see you all Friday, so you can reminisce with me with eclectic music geek. Love you very much, and goodbye.